Afternoon, everyone. My name is Mike Pasta, and I am the owner of Quickscribe Services. This session will be about 30 minutes, and really the intent is to provide you with some basic information on the key features. We've got some new features that I'll show you, how to set up some alerts, and I'll direct you to some video tutorials that will go in a little more in depth on some of these items if I cover them too quickly. Just a bit of information about our company. A lot of people are surprised to know we're a Victoria-based company. It was actually my father who started this business up back in the 80s with a hard copy local government legislation updating service. I had no intention of getting involved in this business, but I helped him transition it over to the online world around 98, 99. And I actually fell in love with the service and my clients and my customer engagement and the product. And so I've been here ever since. So we launched a newer version of the service in 2017. And primarily what the service does, if you don't know already, is it makes it easier for you to kind of navigate, understand, and track relevant legislation and policies to your role in local government. So we're found in 90% of local governments now. It's actually a little bit higher than that recently. But we're also used by the ministries, municipal affairs, Ministry of Housing. I work quite closely with them. That's one of the reasons why we're able to consolidate changes really quickly, because we work with the ministry to get information quickly to you, our clients. So what really separates us from what you would find by Googling or find information on BC laws, the most important thing for you to remember is that we're able to consolidate changes. Right now, it's about a month before they're available on BC laws for most legislation. So keep that in mind. If you're wanting to reference something that's up to date, don't Google it, please. You have access to Quickscribe, likely. I believe all of you do. So access it on Quickscribe as your first source. We're also known for our alerts. So some of you, and depending on your role in local government, may not have to get into legislation that often. But there are options for you to set up timely alerts for notification when there are changes that impact your community. You don't even have to know what laws necessarily to track. And so you can go, for example, to our keyword alert, and you can plug in a term or a phrase or a subject matter or keyword that's important to your role in local government. So for example, if you are in finance, maybe you want to type in annual tax as your kind of catchphrase. If you're a planner, maybe density or development services. So you can plug in any term that's important to you. And what we're going to do essentially is we're going to track any new bills, any new orders, regulations, even the debate in the legislature. If they're having a debate that's dealing with development permits and you're a planner, maybe that's good information for you to know. So we scan all that information, all the text, all the debates, all the legislation, and within hours, you're going to get a timely alert that shows you specifically what was being mentioned. So it's a really good way for you to track information, even if you're not that familiar with legislation. So we built this in-house for professionals like you. So I think you're going to find it relatively easy to navigate. Lots of historical point in time tools. We have the old Municipal Act that's easily accessible. If your bylaws reference the Municipal Act, you want to find out what legislation read in the past. Let me just go back here. I think I skipped a slide. But what we're really known for is helping you better understand the legislation, the Local Government Act and Community Charter. I'm not a lawyer. Most of my clients are not lawyers. And so what we've done is we've provided layers of information adjacent to the sections that you read that help you better understand the information. So for example, let's assume you're going to a section of the Local Government Act and you see a little H icon. That's this little H icon reference here. Click onto it. That's Hansard. And Hansard are the debates in the legislature. And why that's important for you is that we've honed in on where they're discussing that particular section. And it's often in layman's terms where the minister is standing up and providing clarity on what does that section mean? How does it apply to local government? And so that's very helpful information because at the end of the day, you want to understand what you're reading, you want to understand how it's applied, and ultimately the intent behind this legislation. So it's really a good tool for you to better educate yourself on this important information. We also have supplemental notes, these little blue icons. So Hansard, we have about 15,000 Hansard references. You're going to see a lot more of those in the coming months. You also see these little blue icons. They're called information supplemental notes. And they don't have to do with the debates, but they have to do with everything else that might be helpful for you when you're referencing that section. There might be articles from Lutstone and Company or Young Anderson, law blogs, government white papers, reports, anything that's going to provide you with some information about that particular section we're going to probably have some information there. And then another level of information are these annotations. And so annotations are often contributed by what we call our legal experts. If you're in finance, Michael Mole produces ongoing annotations to finance legislation, Bill Hauser, Don Lidstone. And so they're providing information adjacent to these sections, often dealing with cases that you should be aware of that cite these sections. Sometimes legislative changes, the new policy manuals that are coming out, Bill Hauser's providing content on that as well. So that's those are the annotations. We just recently introduced a new Ask Bill Hauser feature. For those who aren't aware, Bill Hauser is considered one of the leading authorities on land use and planning. Obviously appropriate for right now with all the changes that are coming through. So we've created a Q&A feature that anybody can take advantage of. Even if you're not a planner and you have a question for Bill, how these new policies relate to your jurisdiction, you can pose that question. Bill's been great about answering those in a timely manner, and you get a real good feel for the types of questions are out there and how to interpret the changes. So that feature is new. And we just literally 2 hours ago launched a fully searchable version of the housing policies, which you can get online, of course, but we've worked with the ministry on this in that you're able to search these. So they show up in your keyword searching. If you're doing a search for density or small scale housing, that will show up on the searching. So it's easier to navigate. It's also going to be annotated. We haven't got that far yet, but we're going to be adding supplemental notes, just like we do to legislation. We're going to link to references within the manuals, just to make it easier for you to understand and to navigate. Most local governments have unlimited access. In fact, all local governments are set up with unlimited access. So whether you're a HR person, finance, public works, engineering, there's going to be something in this for everybody, and there's no restriction on how many people can use it. If you're not sure how to access the service, contact your administrator. Typically, we go through the corporate officer to set this up. If you're still not sure, contact me directly. I'm usually the guy picking up the phone. Or email me, mike@quickscribe.bc.ca, and I'll be happy to help you. So that's the service in a nutshell. And now I'm just going to walk you through briefly. So just a couple things. Again, this is just an overview. And if I go too quickly, I'll answer the questions at the end, or I'll point you to the help menu. And the help menu is at the very top of the screen here. And I'm big on the video tutorials. So you're going to see a video tutorial on how to print, how to search, how do these supplemental notes work. So anything that I covered will have a video tutorial that you can spend as much time as you want delving into it on a more deeper level. But just as a very basics, when you log into Quickscribe for the first time, my suggestion would be to set up some bookmarks. So for example, that title search is what you can use to find the document you're looking for. Let me just find the policy manuals on there as well now. Local Government Act as an example. And so what you can do with this is that not only will you be able to find the information here in the law, but you can bookmark the section. So you can bookmark the Local Government Act here by selecting that bookmark. Or even if you go into a particular section, you can bookmark a section that you reference on a regular basis. And you'll see on the left-hand side here, I'll just zoom that up. You've got the bookmarks that I've added that I reference quickly on a regular basis and recently viewed based on my activity. Because sometimes you go beyond the Local Government Act. Maybe there's freedom of information or some regulations or community charter or charter of rights. All that information is available here. So we cover all legislation, including a lot of federal housing legislation on our site as well. Once you set up some bookmarks, I'm going to go to a section here. So this page right here is a good example of the types of value add that we've created on the sections of legislation you use. So for example, first thing you're going to notice are these color-coded amendment flags, and they obviously indicate when there was last a change. That's important information, especially if the change just happened a few weeks ago and you're referencing a piece of legislation for an event maybe that happened prior to. But we point out when there was last a change. You can click on these flags. You can go back in time to see how the section read the day before, basically. So it's your window into the past. That's great. There was a change there. How does that section read now? So those are the flags. Those are dates. Those dates represent a point in time when there's actually a change. If you want to go back to like the old Municipal Act, you can do that from the Local Government Act. Actually, this gray menu bar is anything that you'd want to do when you're in a law, and you can go back using this older versions tab, scroll down, And these dates actually represent a point in time when there was a change. So we save a copy the day before the change took effect. So you can see how many times it changes every year. And then you can go back to the old Municipal Act from here. Most of our legislation kind of goes back to the early 90s. We're slowly working our way back as time permits. But here are some other informational components that I'll point out. And these are the Hansard references. So these little H icon references here, again, these are Hansard are the debates in the legislature, and we really focus in on the actual discussion where they're discussing, in this case, public hearings and zoning bylaws as it relates to changes that just happened recently. So it gives you some insight on what the discussion is so you can better understand. If there have been debates over the years, like several debates over a number of years, we'll have that all in there with the most recent debate at the top. You'll also see these little informational buttons. These are supplemental notes. And again, we spend a lot of time curating articles from reputable law firms, ministry reports, summaries of changes, everything you'd ever want to know about that section. It'll be included in these notes. These are all searchable, by the way, and I'll show you how to do keyword searching in a moment. And then we have these little star icons. There are annotations that have been contributed by various local government experts in the field, and you can follow these individuals. So for example, if you feel Bill Bohauser, when he publishes new annotations on my site, you want to get notification, you can follow these individuals just by clicking the follow, and then you'll receive a notification when a new annotation is added. There are actually options for you to create your own annotation. You can save it to file. These are fully encrypted. You can write your own notes. You can link to bylaws. You can upload a little PDF. I'm not going to walk you through all the features for annotations. What I will do at this point is draw your attention to the main annotations page on the left-hand side. And there's a video tutorial explaining how to make use of these annotations, how to follow some of our contributors, how to search them, how to share, how to collaborate with colleagues. All that information is there. At this point, all you need to know really is that if you see a little star icon, click on it, because there's probably going to be some additional information there that's published by one of our contributors. So let me go back to that section there. So I've discussed some of the layers of information. Let me just quickly go over some of the searching. So when you're in a law, quickly, if you want to do a quick search for a keyword, and I'll do a search right now for, I'll just do annual tax. General rule of thumb is use quotation marks for anything that's more than one word in length. Okay, we have a video tutorial on how to do all these different types of searching. If you want to do proximity searches, maybe you want to look for affordable housing within 5 words of some other term, you can do that. So click the little question mark beside this and it explains all the different operators that you can use for searching. I'm just in the Local Government Act, so I'm just simply using the search that's available to me on that top menu. And what's nice about this particular search is that this is much better than trying to do Control F or using some of those other clunky search features, because the highest concentration will come up to the top in the same window. You're not losing your spot in the document, and you quickly scroll through and see, okay, oh, this is the section that has relevance to me, and jump to it from there. That's searching just the Local Government Act. But I think what's really going to save you time is, and new staff time, is when they're searching through information and they're not sure where to look, using the main keyword search. You can access that through the search button at the very top, or, by the way, when you log into the homepage, this search bar here. So the default is always set to the title search to help you find the Local Government Act and the Community Charter. So just remember to switch this to keyword search. And now we're going to search through all types of documents and text of legislation to find what you're looking for. And so if I do a search for official community plan as an example, again, I'm using quotation marks. I want that exact phrase. So we distinguish the different types of documents and laws and information, annotations, Hansard, our Quickscribe reporters, supplemental notes. My suggestion would be to sort this by law, because typically you're looking for regulations, the legislation, right? And so you're going to see the number of hits beside each one of these references, and it might bring up regulations and laws you might not first think to look in. And you can easily expand and collapse these. And so the concept here is to quickly go through and say, oh, okay, yep, this has relevance, this doesn't. And it's just going to save you a little bit of time, because the search results page is conducive to the type of searching that administrators and staff typically will want to do. You're going to notice there's 2 Local Government Act references here. One is an early consolidation, and we will typically do this. So we have an early consolidation page on the left-hand side that will show you what legislation will look when it eventually comes into law. So there are still changes that have not yet come into law, especially from these housing and policy changes. You can view what those are as well. So we do make the text red, so it's very easy to determine that this is not yet in force. So that's the searching. I'll jump back to that section here as my example. So I've covered some searching, all the layers of information, including supplemental notes, the annotations, the Hansard. I'll now draw your attention to the left-hand side here, where we have kind of the browse features. We have a date calculator for anybody involved in elections or by-elections, any kind of a local government event that is dictated by legislation and has timelines and procedures, public hearings. And so what this tool will do is it pulls in all the information that you require for that event, and it'll give you the specifications, the timelines, the requirements. We're actually working with a local law firm, Stewart McDonald Stewart, to enhance this service, but just be aware that this tool is available if you're involved in those kind of planning events. We also have the new Ask Bill feature, and this is proving to be very popular, as you can imagine. Bill is answering questions as they come in, and we just had another question today. We had another one yesterday, and the ministry is actually doing a very good job of providing as much information as they can. They've been holding webinars, but there's still some questions, legal questions that come through that require maybe some guidance and maybe a little bit of interpretation from the legislation perspective. So you can ask Bill, and anybody's entitled to ask Bill, and I encourage you to take advantage of this. Ask the Bill question here, pose it, and then we make this available only to others in the Quickscribe community, which includes only local government. So these are not searchable yet, but I plan to do that in the next month or so, so they'll show up on your keyword as well. And then as a couple hours ago, we literally launched the new policies and manuals, policy manuals and guidelines. Now, most of these are searchable. So you can do a search for housing in our keyword search, and these documents will show up. So we're really trying to make them more accessible to you. And you're also going to be able to, just like legislation, you're going to start to see, you can print these off, by the way. You can print off sections if you need them. You can bookmark them. There's going to be annotations, supplemental notes. These are new, so we don't have a lot of information. In fact, we have no annotations on these yet, but Bill Bohauser is actually going to go through and create some, maybe some links to the legislation, just to make it easier for you to navigate and understand. The BC codes, we don't have them in our database. These are just convenient links, and we've laid it out in such a way so it's easier for you to understand how to access them, the background information. So these are just convenient links for you. We just added that a few hours ago as well. So the browsing features are on the left, but for the most part, what you're going to do is you want to bookmark sections, you want to use our searching. And then I want to show you the alerts. The alerts are something that I think is important for everybody to set up, even if you're not referencing legislation on a regular basis. So I'm going to go through a few of these alerts with you. If one of these alerts sounds like it's something you want to use, just make a note of it and go in and create your own custom alert after the demonstration. So the first alert is the BC Legislative Digest. And this particular alert is for those who want to receive notification when there's a change in a particular piece of legislation, like the Community Charter or the Local Government Act, or a group of laws. It is quite a broad category, local government category, and it includes a lot of information from a lot of different laws, but they're mostly related to local government. So the point here is that you can go through this wizard, create your name, and go through and determine what either a category of legislation like a local government, or maybe select a few laws. And if there's a change that comes through within hours, you're going to get a notification from us, and it'll show you what that change is. You also have the option to receive pending changes. So you have the option on the next page to say, if I am, for example, tracking the community charter, do I want to get notified when there's a change that's just introduced into the legislature today that might not come into force for a long time? And I'll be able to link to the bill that was just introduced to see if it has relevance to me and my community. So It is a reference to the bill. It is a reference to specifically legislation. There are sometimes supplemental notes to help you understand what that change is. But this is a tool that I'd suggest if you're interested in tracking specific legislative changes to specific laws or bills. We have our Civic Laws Reporter, which many of you are quite familiar with. We put a lot of resources into this. This is the last month. We're about to send out the new one within the next few days. We have different categories, including the local government category, which is the main one. Some local governments have mining and forestry operations. So we also have employment, HR information, local government. We curate articles from law firms and ministry sources. So a lot of really good information on here that you might not find just at the UBCM or different locations. On top of the news items that come out every month, we provide a summary of the changes that have come into force in our local government legislation category, and you can click through and view the changes. So I'd encourage you to sign up to that at the very least. The keyword alert tool is my favorite alert. We launched this about 1.5 years ago, and here's where you can actually go in and create, even if you're not familiar with legislation, you don't like getting into it, create some keyword alerts that are relevant to your role in local government or your community. I will type in, how about this, development permit. Let's say I'm a planner. So any reference to new bills which become acts or amend acts or orders, which are like regulations. We have an explanation on what all of these are, but they're all legislation-based items and documents. Hansard are the debates in the legislature, and if they're dealing with and discussing development permits and you want to find out what they're discussing, this is a great way, a great tool to track that, and news items that we put out. And we're tracking this information. You can set up multiple alerts. You can remove these. My only suggestion is be as specific as possible. Don't say local government, because you would be shocked at how many documents and laws reference local governments, and that's quite a broad term. So the alerts are up at the top. There are other alerts. You can track annotations that are added to the Local Government Act. You can track individuals who are posting annotations, including our contributors like Bilbo Hauser. You can start following them. Again, all this information is available if you want to delve into it a little bit more in terms of setting up alerts on the help menu. And there's a video tutorial on all of these features. The last thing I'll point out is the My Account. And the My Account is where you go to manage all your information, your settings, the individuals you're following, the bookmarks, keyword alerts that you set up. All that information is accessible on the My Account at the top. So to recap, I want to leave a couple minutes for questions. Obviously, a lot of information here, and we're adding more information all the time. But the key takeaway for you is that you have access to something that's a lot more up to date than what you'd find on the government sites. You also have access to a lot of value-added information, the supplemental notes, the annotations, the Hansard, and everything that's going to try and make it easier for you to understand. And then we have the alerts to notify you of changes that are important to your role in local government and your community. And of course, now we have the new policy manuals and guides. So hopefully you found this useful.